So let's start, though, with the topic of a dyslexia diagnosis. September is National Child Awareness Month. And so we're going to talk with a dyslexia therapist and author. She's here in studio, Rebecca Bush, just about what this looks like and how you can navigate it as a family. Rebecca, thanks so much for being here to talk about this. You are a dyslexia therapist. You are an author who's wrote a book on this topic. You work with families. This is what you do. If a family right now is wondering, maybe this is what's going on with my child, that can be a troublesome situation to navigate. What, is your expertise, in those beginning stages of figuring this out?
Whenever you think there's something going on, always say, talk to your kid's school.
Yeah.
Right? So parents, you know your kid better than anybody, right? So trust your gut. If you feel like there's something going on, talk to your school. If they can't help you, start looking online for other sources. But if there's something going on, we want to act early.
And this was one of my questions was, obviously kiddos starting to read at, 5, 6, 7 years old. But you were telling me that you could potentially be seeing warning signs of dyslexia as early as 3 or 4.
Yeah. So dyslexia is reading, right? I mean, that's what we see. So we don't see a diagnosis until first grade usually, because that's when we're learning to read.
Yeah.
But at 3, that's when we're moving into those starting to talk, right? So we've done our first words, we've done our phrases, and we're moving into sentences.
So if we ever see that language development slower than we expect, that could be an early warning sign of something like dyslexia.
And so like you said, a diagnosis really isn't going to be made until closer to that first grade time frame. But ultimately, if a child maybe didn't get help at that time, that diagnosis really can be made whenever, and that help as well.
Yeah, and it's actually, there's a big genetic component to dyslexia. So if a parent has it, it's about 50-50 that the kid has it. And I work a lot, not only with the kids, but with families. And there have been so many parents when the kid gets diagnosed and they look back at their own time in school and they're like, oh yeah, that
was
me, right?
Yeah.
So, even adults can be diagnosed. It can be at any point because dyslexia is a continuum as well.
And I know for so many parents, to be hit with, okay, your child has dyslexia, that may be really distressing. Oh my goodness, is my child going to be able to read? Are they going to do well in school? What's your answer to that? Because it's good news on the other side of a diagnosis.
It is good news. So always the first thing I say to parents, take a deep breath. Right, you now got some answers, we can move forward. So the great thing about dyslexia, we know exactly what it is, and we know exactly how to help.
Yeah.
So once you get started with that intervention, then you've got a bright future. Everything's going to be great.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned, it's so great to partner with schools or the program that your child is in. If that situation, that scenario seems a little daunting, what are some tips from you on, how to utilize those resources and find them in the first place?
Parents don't have to have all the answers, but they need to know how to ask the right questions. So think about what kind of intervention are they going to have, who on campus are you working with, so that you can find who you need to talk to and just start to break it down piece by piece and get started. Because it's a lot to start at first. What is dyslexia? What does my kid need? What is the future going to hold? But when we break it down step by step, then it becomes manageable.
And once your child is working with some sort of a specialist, with which you have the title of dyslexia therapist, which I did not even know was a title, and it may be called other things depending on what school you're in. Let's kind of backtrack for a second. Who would your child be working with typically, to work through dyslexia? Yeah,
so this is where it gets kind of muddy because different parts of the country call us different things.
Sure.
But you're gonna want somebody who has training in what's called Orton-Gillingham. So that OG approach is our multisensory, structured literacy. That's what we want for dyslexia. So it could be an OG tutor, it could be a dyslexia specialist, but somebody who has training in the program and also has training in just reading in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once you're working with someone like that and your child is working to overcome this, obviously homework and reading and things like that is also happening at home, not just at school. As a parent who doesn't have any formal training, I know that can be, oh my goodness, am I going to be able to help at all? What's the answer there?
I say don't try to be their tutor, right? Be their parent. Give them the love, give them the support, give them all the things that nobody else in the world can give them.
Yeah.
Right? So if you do that, they're gonna already be in a better place. And then put a system in place, let your kiddo be involved in that process. Maybe there's a fun part of the room that they wanna put a lamp in or have some ownership over.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be stressful at times because it is gonna be hard, but just bring in that positivity and that relationship you have with your kid.
And I know we talked about this in the beginning, but in your line of work and all the experience you have, this is something you can work through, have techniques for, and be very successful, once you have those kind of tools in your toolbox. So if parents are hearing this is not a, your child's not going to succeed, they're not going to go to college, that's not at all what we're talking about here. It's, like everyone has just a challenge that some people deal with.
Yeah, and there's tons of famous people with dyslexia, right? You can Google it and find every name under the sun in some industry. And we also have technology, right? So we live in a world where speech to text and all these other things can support as well. Your kid's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Especially once they make it through those early school years and they find their passion, they're going to be on the right track.
I love that. Okay, and you are just about to publish, or you have published, and it'll go out for people to grab your very own book on this topic. Tell me a little bit about, what the book entails and just the work that went into it.
Yeah, it's called Dyslexia in Your Newly Diagnosed Child. It's on Amazon, anywhere books are sold, comes out on Tuesday.
Yes.
So you can get your copy. And it comes from the, honestly, thousands of conversations I've had with parents. And every single time, parents are like, why didn't somebody tell me this sooner? So I worked with the editors at Penguin Random House. We put this all together into, here's your guide, everything you need to know, step by step. So all the questions you're asking about, homework and friendships and how to talk to school, all of that's in there. There's scripts, there's tips, there's everything you need to support your kiddo.
Yeah, a great baseline to provide you with that information, quell those worries a little bit and hopefully push you in the right direction to, find someone in your community that can really help your child and your family.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything I haven't asked here that you want families to know, who may be dealing with this right now or could potentially in the future? Anything else that I didn't touch on?
One of my big missions is questioning all of these myths. There's so many misunderstandings about dyslexia. You're not lazy. You're not dumb. It has nothing to do with vision. Your brain works a little bit differently. So you just need to be taught how to read in a different way.
Gotcha.
But it has nothing to do with your intellect.
Yeah, and I'm sure too that this can, be a bit of a confidence buster, especially when kiddos are young or, into middle and high school, when confidence is a struggle for all of us. What's your tip there? And I think you kind of touched on it with having the parents as that source of support. But if this ends up being kind of a confidence distressor for kids, what's your kind of word of advice there?
The big thing that I always talk with parents is when you feel your kid is ready, talk with them about the diagnosis. Because when they understand, hey, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
It's just that my brain works a little bit differently.
Right.
It's so empowering. And then they are able to self-advocate for what they need as well.
I love that. I love that. All right. Well, Rebecca Bush, thank you so much for coming and talking about this. Again, give us the title of your book one more time.
Dyslexia and Your Newly Diagnosed Child.
There you go. You can grab it on Amazon or wherever you get books starting on Tuesday of next week. Rebecca, thanks so much for coming in, talking about this really important topic. Hopefully any families in this boat right now feel a little bit reassured now that we've walked through it, and you can get even more helpful advice through her book next week. We're going to take a quick break. When we